my clock, I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop. No popcorn, I pop pistols. Reaming my body, clothing no issue. Bitch, you look sick, you need a tissue. You drop a body, I just might bless you. I'm metrosexual.
Yo, what is going on, everyone? It's Wraith here, back with another video. Now in today's video, I'm going to be basically going over what you should be doing in a day of Fortnite to actually improve, start seeing quicker improvement and actually learning something instead of just playing the game to play the game or putting in the hours and not seeing any improvement. This is basically going to be a video on what you should be doing every single day, like I said. And now this all kind of depends on your time frame. So if you can only play for an hour a day, just kind of shorten everything. So if I say do 15 minutes of this, only do like 5-10 minutes or whatever, right? If you can play 3 hours, great. This is around a 2 to 3 hour kind of session. If you can play more, do this and then do more of it, like, you know what I mean? So basically just figure it out around your schedule and how much you can actually play. But yeah, if you're looking forward to this video, make sure you slap a like button, comment what you want to see for a future video, hit that subscribe button, and let's get right into the video. And make sure you're using creator code WraithFN in the item shop. Let's get into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do every single time you hop on Fortnite every single day, and I've talked about this in previous videos, is get a good warm-up in. So also, not only is it a good warm-up, but it also helps improve your mechanics in whatever your warm-up actually is. So it's just a good overall all-around tool to help you actually improve overall, as well as get better, or not get better, but play better throughout the day. So the first thing we're going to do is basically warm up in Kovacs or an aim trainer on Fortnite. So if you're on controller, you can kind of skip this part or only do like 5 minutes of it, whatever. You can just do editing courses, build battles, whatever the case is. You don't really need to improve your aim. I'm not saying that like you can't, but I'm saying it's normally not something you should prioritize your time on. But if you're on mouse and keyboard and you have Kovacs, maybe hop on 15 minutes, even longer if you want, of Kovacs, and do whatever course you kind of like. I've made a video on good courses, you can look them up, whatever the case is. Just do a little bit of Kovacs, and then maybe 15 minutes of in-game aim trainers, where you can do, again, whatever course. I've made videos on it previously. Whatever course you kind of want, you can do tracking, flicking, whatever the case is. And again, it's all kind of what you want to do. So if you want to do 30 minutes of Kovacs instead of 15 and 15, that's completely fine. If you don't have Kovacs, again, you can just do 30 minutes of aim trainers in game. Completely fine. It's all kind of up to you. And like I said, if you're on controller, I would probably recommend doing something else like editing courses, just because that is where probably a lot of controller players actually need to work on, is their edits. But yeah, that's kind of the first 30 minutes ish, 15 to 20 minutes ish. And like I said, if you only have an hour to play, only do like 10 minutes of aim training. So now my next tip is basically just warming up your edits as well as your building, and that's just 15 minutes of kind of free building. You'll see like people like Mongrel and stuff do it every single time. They do 2 hours, 3 hours of free building. But if you only have so much time or whatever the case is, or you're just warming up, like I said, just do 15 minutes of free building. If it's a tournament day, I recommend doing a little bit more if you have time. If not, just do 10 to 15 minutes of free building. Like I'll show you on the screen right now. You can kind of do whatever you want. It doesn't need to be super fast, doesn't need to be super consistent, just something that kind of get your builds going, get your kind of edits going a little bit, just so you can warm up a little bit. And maybe once you get kind of done like throughout the day and you maybe just want to chill, maybe come back and do some extra free builds if you have extra time. If not, this is just a really good way to kind of warm up and get going. So that's kind of it for the kind of warm-up type-ish part of the video. Now basically let's get into the improvement and what you need to really be focusing on. But trust me, doing that 45 minutes or whatever of just actual warm-up and practicing your mechanics will help you overall in the long run. Trust me, it is worth it. But now let's get into the juicy stuff. So the first thing I normally recommend doing is playing 20 minutes of 1v1 build fights in creative, and you can find it on Discord, you can find it against your buddies. And basically the reason I recommend this is just because people don't do 1v1s as much. They're so focused on box fighting because normally you won't get into these huge build fights anymore. But being able to 1v1 effectively is actually really, really important, as well as learning and being able to like block your enemies from building or doing quick edits or taking height just instantly. Like, yeah, normally you're not going to be getting in these really crazy 1v1 build fights anymore, but just having the mechanics down is really, really important. Like, you'll see Unknown Army is a prime example. He basically stops and takes height on anyone in literally 3 or 4 or 3 or 4 ramps, I guess you could say. Like before you get into the huge build fight, he's basically blocking his opponent from stopping, and the reason and how he learned to do that was basically just 1v1ing in creative. So trust me, I know it's not as big of a deal anymore, but just spend 20 minutes of 1v1ing your buddy or on Discord, and you will see some improvement in your overall building mechanics as well as quick edits. Now, similar to the 1v1 in build fighting, I recommend 20 minutes of box fighting, because obviously box fighting is still really good to help your overall kind of box fighting mechanics. Now, yes, a lot of people do almost too much box fighting in my opinion, because yes, it is relative to the gameplay. Like, it does help your gameplay. It helps you with quick edits. It helps you with when to edit, how to box fight really close range. But there is obviously some negatives of it. Like, it's not honestly gonna be like that in game. That's not really how like in game works. Obviously there is box fights, but not really in those box fighting tight scenarios like that. So it is a little bit unrealistic, but it is still a really good way to actually help improve your overall mechanics for editing, close range shotgun shots, whatever the case is. It is definitely worth it. And again, same thing with build fights. I recommend doing it 20-ish minutes. Just find some people on Discord, find some people, your buddies, whatever the case is. Just do it. Again, don't do it against someone who's just absolutely terrible. Do it against someone who's either better than you or around your skill level. And then these two are kind of the same thing, where if you want, you can do 40 minutes of build fighting, you can do 40 minutes of box fighting. All kind of depends what you think you're worse at. If you're pretty similar in both, I just recommend doing 20 of each. If you feel like you suck at 1v1s, do focus a little bit more on 1v1s. If you suck on box fighting, do a little bit more of box fighting. So now that you're done with kind of the more creative mechanics side of the spectrum, now this is where it's important. So a lot of people spend 4 or 5 hours or 2 hours or whatever just strictly box fighting or build fighting or whatever the case is. And yeah, that's good, but in my personal opinion, I feel like when I did that, I wasted a lot of my time. Yeah, it helped my overall mechanics, but it didn't really help me get better at actually generally fighting, rotating, etc., third party stuff like that. So the best thing you're going to want to do, in my opinion, is still spend a majority of your time in actual game scenarios. I personally still think this is probably the best way to improve, in my opinion. Like, the reason all these pro players are playing more box fighting, 1v1s, etc. right now is because they played thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of games, customs, solo squads, etc. all in the early days of Fortnite. So they've already put in the time into all these kind of actual gameplay scenarios. You, for example, the person watching this video, most likely don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of games in strictly customs, solos, whatever the case is, right? Now, obviously, the pro players can more focus on just honing in on their mechanics and their skill, but for you, I recommend just playing a little bit more of the game instead of creative stuff. So some things I'd recommend doing is like 30 minutes of Zone Wars, which you don't really have to do, but I recommend doing it. It's just an overall good feel of getting into as many fights as possible. You don't have to do it, but I recommend doing Zone Wars because it is a really good way to help overall fighting ability. But now getting into the like really good stuff is, one, I would say W keying in arena. If you, again, depends how much time you have. If you only have an hour to play, you'll probably only have 30 minutes to do this. If you have 3 hours, I'd spend literally an hour and a half doing strictly W keying in arena. If you have 5 hours, maybe spend 2.5 hours strictly W keying arena. Trust me, this will help you become more aggressive player, get way more confidence, and be way more confident taking on fights and knowing that you can win most fights. Like I said, even if you lose 2,000 points in arena, doesn't matter. Just practice W keying, learning how to fight, learning how to take fights confidently, and rotate, etc. Really good way to improve. Another thing I'd say to work on your end games is do customs right now. Really good way to improve your end game and basically just learn how to rotate properly, when you should take fights, when you shouldn't take fights, how to rotate and tunnel end game. Super important. End game is obviously a huge factor to doing well in tournaments. So trust me. Again, same thing goes with arena W key. Play this for an hour and a half, and then the last thing I would say is solo squads. Play this for 30 minutes, an hour, kind of like the Zone Wars, where it's not as important, but it's still a really good way to just get your confidence up, learn how to take on multiple enemies, and just improve your overall mechanics and fighting ability. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you're going to have 6 hours to play all of these in a day, but what I recommend doing is, for example, if you're playing Wednesday and you have 3 hours, is do all those warm-ups, do the box fights, 1v1s, etc., get those out of the way, and then play like an hour and a half of just strictly arena W key. And then on Thursday you do, instead of W key, you do customs, and then the next day you do zone wars and solo squads, whatever the case is, right? Kind of switch it up and kind of gauge, and this kind of down to kind of the self-critique, kind of gauge what you're good at and what you're bad at. If you're really good at endgame but you feel like you're not taking enough fights and winning enough fights early and mid game, well, then maybe do a little bit more of arena W key instead of doing more customs. Like I said, do a little bit more arena W key or solo squads. If you feel like you're decent at taking fights, you're really good, you win most mid game fights, but you suck at end game, well, then play more customs so you learn how to play more end game. Now if you kind of are in the middle of everything, basically just do whatever you feel like, or kind of have a strict schedule where you can switch between the games. Now again, obviously, like I said, it all kind of depends on your schedule, so whatever works for you, just do that. But I recommend kind of this strict, well, not strict, but kind of this style of practicing to and actually improving. And then if you want, if you have more time, I'd spend just 30 minutes or something like that doing VOD review, but I'm not really going to talk about that in this video that much. But VOD reviewing your customs, VOD reviewing your arena games or pro players, whatever the case is, if you have time, I recommend doing this for sure. And trust me, if you stick to the schedule and kind of do these things, you will see really fast and good improvement. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if you did, make sure you slap a like button on it, comment what you want to see for a future video, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace, guys. Have a good one.